Börja inspelningen. Hello and most welcome to Heidegger 1746. And we will today continue where we left off in 1742 with Locker and Sedmak, the language game of revelation. And we are presently on page 257. Let's see what we mentioned yesterday here. We talked about the original approach to Christianity as praxis, as a doing. Nothing gets real until it has a doing, a working. You can compare that to the football game. If you're not participating, nothing in the game will be real for you. It doesn't acquire any reality. The football, oddly enough, will not be a football anymore. And the players and the game would be purely transcendental. I don't think it would be unfair to compare it to the transcendental game of Max Tegmark or Hugh Everett, where there is a certain unreality to all things. The realness stems from the participation. And the reason for the church has become unreal, and God and the worship is, if it's not in the game, if it's not practice, it will lose some of its reality. And this is, of course, not a black and white relationship. It's a matter of degree. And I would say, like all things, it's gradable. Exactly, praxis. Things exactly, oddly enough, which makes me glad, exactly as in quantum mechanics, nothing acquires the property of being real until it's participatory. In quantum mechanics, everything is relational. That means that the observer is in on it. It's not a fault or a negative. It is what makes reality come to the fore. Revelation has its own rules. Sedmak and Locker are defending the Bible, no doubt. We have already started a discussion about that. And what they do is incredibly admirable in a world that recently, the last couple of 100 years, have completely to the core changed what used to be Christianity to a passive experience. They are defending the faith as something real, something done. Here we have another one. Measure. It's also a doing. Or you could say going into the revelation is all measuring out. The actual act, or the act of real making things participatory again. And for those who wants to have a recap on this, I recommend the slate metaphor in philosophical investigations, showing two people making a wall, and how that casting of the wall is dependent on they are cooperating. That's a mutual cooperation. One mention here, I think it was Henrik said, call it private religion. The new religion is also private. Nothing shared, you don't participate in anything communal, liturgy, ritual, at least to a much lesser extent. And here we have, God is not the numbers of angels that fit on the top of a needle, but how to realize God's victory in heaven on earth. Instead of sitting, contemplating, theory, not being active, and as we know today, if you don't participate, you cannot create belief. You will not be understandable to yourself. That is, of course, the private language argument. And we will continue where we left off at 1742 at page. Yes. Christian understanding and judgment are based on Christ, not the scripture of human beings, but on the understanding of Christ himself. And this is where we left off. The worldview that opposes revelation for the first time is openly unmasked in the 7 letters of Revelation, chapters 2 to 3. Christ hates the Nicolaitans in Ephesus and Pergamon. He warns the church in Smyrna and Philadelphia against those who say that they are Jews but are not. They are the synagogue of Satan. Christ reveals that Satan himself has a throne and dwells in Pergamum. There, some members of the church hold the teachings of Balaam, who thought to Balak practice immorality. Also in Thyatira, the self-designated prophetess Jezebel deceives Christ's servants to perform adultery. Chapters 12, 13, 17, and 18 elaborate on the 7 letters and explain how Christ's death and resurrection affect heaven and earth. In heaven, Satan is finally defeated. Unlike in the time before Christ's death and resurrection, there is no more accuser of humans in heaven. However, while God supremely rules heaven, Satan continues to persecute the church here on earth. To achieve this, he manifests himself in the Roman emperor, the city of Rome. The Roman Empire and the Roman imperial cult. I recommend that you move, please, Kalle, until I finished like 5 lines and stopped reading. Yeah. There Satan, like last time, there Satan seduces and forces all humanity to fornication and immorality. That's about 5 lines now. You can go up. And then we take another 5 lines and go up. Thank you very much. As bait, he uses riches and wealth. He deceives with false spirit and dazzles humans, including John, through false miracles and dull splendors. Satan indeed imitates and caricatures Christ, but where Satan rules, there is a world without God. Revelation, however, does not leave any misunderstanding of what worldly riches really are. They are not for free. But must be bought at the cost of everlasting life. What at the moment sparkle and shines bright is already given over to judgment and final death. All who participate in this Satan's world and do not repent will meet the final destiny. There is no hiding from God's judgment. The point, wits of revelation and how to win it. Revelation demands all Christians to follow God's rule. Any failure of doing so is to lose the game forever. Following Revelation's rules means to follow Christ, the Lamb, wherever it goes, and to win what Christ has promised. What Christ has promised in Revelation 2:3 is found in the new heaven and the new world John sees in Revelation 21. It is the holy city, the New Jerusalem. Winning the game is to build the New Jerusalem. The grammar of to conquer. Is related to being invited to the marriage supper of the Lamb. This marriage is indeed possible because Christ's bride has made herself ready. To her, it has been granted to be clothed with fine linen, bright and pure. For the fine linen is the righteous deeds of the saints. The Christian conquest, therefore, is accomplished by good deeds. These deeds are the Christian response to a world in which there is no God. The New Jerusalem is a new world in which God dwells on earth as he dwells forever in heaven. John's vision is an entirely new one. Unlike in the other cities like Rome and the cities of revelation, there is no temple in the New Jerusalem, and its doors shall never be shut by day. God and the Lamb are its light, and the water of life is free. Christians who will be able to enter into the holy city must follow the Lamb's call for perseverance, which also includes the demand to actually leave the reality of sin. This, in return, means not being able to participate in the excessive profit-making of the world. All sinners and evildoers will forever be excluded from the New Jerusalem. Christ the Lamb calls Christian to remain with him and his bride, leaving Babylon for Jerusalem, must become a form of Christian life, a habit. That is a matter of faith. Thus, worshipping God and the Lamb is not simply singing a song while waiting for the inevitable, but washing one's robes white, these good deeds distinguish Christians from outsiders and ultimately will realize and establish the new world that John sees. Christians are called to steadfastness and to actively conquer the world, as when Michael and his angels fought Satan and defeated him in heaven. The angels of the church and all Christians are called to actively manifest this heavenly defeat on earth. Not, however, through a violent revolution, but by realizing here on earth what John sees, a new world. This world, and in it the New Jerusalem, is the opposite of the existing order representing Satan. The newness of revelation John and the Christian churches are confronted with a new situation. While drawing upon Old Testament experience, revelation calls for a new response based on a new understanding of who Christ is in this world. Christ teaches all Christians a new song in heaven and a new song on earth. Unlike the old song of Moses, this new song is about this world, calling all nations to come to worship God and to enter the New Jerusalem. The form and function of the new city is indicated through its contrasts to the cities where Satan dwells. The surprising absence of the temple and its direct replacement by God and the Lamb illustrate the immediacy of the presence God has in the new city. Although the New Jerusalem, like all human societies, must have a role for institutions. God and the Lamb are the only source of light and life in the city. The motif of Jerusalem's open doors is based on Isaiah 60:11. Exegetes are puzzled over the fact that John might have wrongly quoted the Old Testament, while Isaiah reads, "Your gates shall always be open, day and night. They shall not be shut." John observes that Jerusalem's gates will never be shut by the day, and there will be no light there. John deliberately rephrases the Isaiah quote in order to create a contrast to the system of the beast, in which no one can buy or sell unless he has the mark of the beast. A contextual reading of Revelation 21:25 sees in Jerusalem's open doors an index that, by way of contrast to Revelation 13:17, signifies an openness that opposes the system of Rome's domination. And I think we put a mark there. Bill 1996, 222. And I will go for some quotes. And once more, in this last reading, the authors Sedmak and Locker are even more pressing that the message of Christ is real, has a reality to it. It's not so Tegmarkian, if you like. It is an actual participatory in this world, I would say. Pointing to another world, yes, but still participatory. Not outside of the doings of both heaven and earth. I found some nice quotes we go all the way back to page 257. You can, Kalle, please. Already at the beginning there was some noteworthy quotes actually in the first phrase. It's a bit further down, just the opening one, the third paragraph. The worldview that opposes revelation for the first time is openly unmasked in the 7 letters of Revelation, chapters 2 and 3. So it reveals what opposes the Christian mission, vision. So there are also some accusations of the Nicolaitans in Ephesus and Pergamon. And he also warns the church in Philadelphia and Smyrna that they are the synagogue of Satan. And further down, there are some members of the church who hold the teaching of Balaam, who thought Balak to practice immorality. Just a note here, so it'd be easier to remember. I think Balaam was one of those Phoenician Punic gods to whom one made both animal and, in worst case, human sacrifice. They were, so to speak, the old worldview. They are the staleness, the fixatedness, where nothing moves. And Christ reveals that Satan himself has a throne and dwells in Pergamum. So he has an existent, he has a temple. There is a synagogue of the devil. Things that are outside participatory game. I can make an example here. I'm not sure if Balak is the same as the Phoenician god Bala, but it still holds. In the last Punic War, where Rome put a siege on Carthage, the Carthaginians start sacrificing first all the livestock in Carthage, which was quite extensive. And then they went on to sacrificing in a horrendous, horrific, monstrous bronze machinery the children of Carthage. It was an absolutely passive act instead of defending the city from the Romans and try to break the siege. They made this sort of sacrifice to the passivity, not defending the city. It eventually fell, although not on that day, but the lack of activity among the Phoenicians and the Carthaginians were duly noted by the Romans, and in the end they became a defeated people, and Carthage destroyed to the last house. And then the Romans plowed salt into the soil for nothing more to grow there. It's passivity, not actively participating in anything. And the message of Revelation is a welcoming, an invitation. Do come into the game. Do act, play it, do it. If not, and we can see that on page 258, for the Romans after the Carthaginians were the next ones to become passive. And the second line here, Satan continues to persecute the church here on earth. To achieve this, he manifests himself in the Roman Empire, the city of Rome, and the Roman emperor, sorry, I read wrong the last time as well. The city of Rome, the Roman Empire, and the Roman imperial cult. There Satan seduces and forces all humanity to fornication and immorality. What is fornication and immorality? It is not participating in the game of morale. And one could also add to this, it is also short-termed. Fornication, instead of establishing family and generations that last millennia, and means progression, means harmony, solidity, and unity. That is playing the game. We want the game to continue for a long time, eternity. The Romans no longer opted for that. They have become the whore of Babylon almost, festering on their own meat. Could also say they become lazy and sold their activity for bread and wine and a day at the circus. Further down, we have the point, the wits of revelation, and how to win it. There is a point, there is a gain. So you don't do it all for nothing. It's not in vain. And I think that is the sharpest contrast to the old rule, the Baal or the Roman Empire. It has a hypothesis of a gain, a point. I don't remember his name, but there is a philosopher who said Christianity was the first with the hypothesis. That's their unique trait. Hypothesis in here meaning long-term wits, point, goal. And he also argued effectively for that Christianity also brought about the technical revolution that already happened in the Middle Ages. Because people started to look beyond slavery and what satisfied them within a year and start making points. The author called them hypotheses. See if I can find his name and put it into the description. He was Catholic, that's why I remember. Written many books, well spoken. Revelation demands all Christians to follow God's rule. Any failure of doing so is to lose the game forever. Following Revelation's rules means to follow Christ, the Lamb, wherever it goes. You are on the football field or you are at the races. I think that would be more apt description here. And there's also a footnote I would like to add here because it's so good. And it's a reference to the very beginning of this page. Footnote 7. Here once more, the uniqueness of revelation can be seen. Unlike in the Old Testament, where human suffering is often interpreted as the result of divine courtroom battles, for John, Christ's victory is final. There is a sure and clear witness in contrast to the old Jewish and still persistent view. Maybe I'm pushing it too far there, but persistent view of the Jews. The last sentence here, the grammar of to conquer, and continuing on the next page, is related to being invited to the marriage supper of the Lamb. This marriage is indeed possible. And the other one you already know. So the new temple is this new following and the promise of an eternal point, a witz beyond any earthly expectations. On page 260, the angels of the churches and all Christians are called to actively, do you hear? Actively manifest this heavenly defeat on earth, not, however, through a violent revolution, but realizing here on earth what John sees. A new world. This is the future, that's the witz. This world and in the New Jerusalem is opposite of the existing order representing Satan. Satan is the staleness, the passivity, where you don't join the game and therefore you do not get the prize. It is an absolute newness to the revelation, which is a reveal to most of us. True message of something that truly sings or plays on a new tune. And the absence is later mentioned of temple, but it's replaced by God and the Lamb to receive something even greater, of greater value. Although the disappearance of the temple can be perceived as a shocking one. Further down on that page, 5 lines from the end. God and Lamb are the only source of light and life in the city. And further down, Isaiah reads, your gates shall always be open, day and night. They shall not be shut. No more staticness, no more staleness. And an openness, a new system that John rephrases to show that a new openness is open. That was a very interesting part of this. Very satisfying. Kalle, maybe you have some comments, question, quotes to add?
Yes, indeed. Let me see. 259. No, excuse me. 258. Winning the game is to build the new Jerusalem. And here also the footnote, but not footnote 7, but footnote 9. And these two authors, Locker and Sedmak, oppose, so to say, Giesen's interpretation. I will not translate it here, but they emphasize.
Give it a try, Kalle.
Should I try to translate? The holy city, the holy city that John sees. I should say that the Heilige Stadt is in accusative, so John sees the holy city as it goes up to heaven. This holy city is not done by hands, done by people.
Human hands.
And it exists already in the heavens. Do you agree with that translation so far?
Yeah, very good. Congrats.
So the New Jerusalem is above all designed by God. I don't know how to translate Gegenentwurf. Do you know? I don't know this word in German.
That's an unusual word I haven't experienced before.
Let us check this out.
Against something.
Yes.
Against through.
Let me see. In English. Counter draft. What a word. Alternative draft. Okay. So it's alternative draft. This New Jerusalem is
also counter movement.
Against the.
It's a counter movement
Jerusalem.
by God against the empirical Jerusalem. Okay.
That is the empirical Jerusalem. I think the earthly Jerusalem. The old Jerusalem.
Yeah. Das Teil der gottfeindlichen Welt geworden ist und zu jeder menschlichen Stadt überhaupt.
Yes, the old Jerusalem that was part of the world that was against God.
Yeah.
And it was also jede menschliche Stadt überhaupt, and it was against all also this New Jerusalem, I think, is against every human city.
Ja, överhuvudtaget.
Überhaupt, yes. Överhuvudtaget überhaupt, how to translate it to English, überhaupt. 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 Överhuvudtaget. Generally. Generally against any human city. So the key phrase here in reason is that this New Jerusalem is not made by human hands, nicht von Menschenhand gemacht, and it exists already in heavens. While these two authors, Locker and Sedmak, emphasize that you, the Christian, you build the New Jerusalem actively. So it's not a Platonic Jerusalem.
No, it's a participatory, active, real. Oh wow, yeah, very good.
So these are like building to build the New Jerusalem. And let me go. And I also like this, what you already mentioned here about the gates. So in Italia, the gates, they shall not be shut. While as John says that gates will never be shut by day and there will be no night there. So here, actually, night gets a metaphoric meaning, that is evil.
Oh, yeah.
So the point of Locker and Sedmak seems to be that so there is no control. I don't know how do you put it. So it's an openness, but I don't know if the.
Maybe you could say my suggestion is, my humble suggestion is, the limitedness in the old way is opened up, so you don't need this mark of the beast.
Yes, there is a contrast to Isaiah without doubt. But it's more metaphorical here, night. But I don't know if this this necessarily is correct. I don't know, but okay. You would need to explore it further and to say something. But it's interesting, absolutely. Perhaps I could say something about Balaam finally.
Yes. Just let me stress, I don't know if Balaam is the same as Baal. But
no, it's not. Balaam is
a nice association with the Baal god of the Carthaginians.
Yes, they are certain related, I think, the name. Balaam, I think, comes from Baal. And it's a diviner in the Torah. He's a non-Israelite. King Balak of Moab offered him money to curse Israel, but Balaam blessed the Israelites instead, as dictated by God. So he blessed the Israelites against his will. So therefore, he's a wicked man. So according to the book of Revelation, Balaam told King Balak how to get the Israelites to commit sin by enticing them to copulate with foreign women and worship idols. The Israelites fell into the transgression due to the traps, and God unleashed a deadly plague upon them as a result. So this happened in two steps. So first King Balak offered money to Balaam to curse Israelites, but then he blessed them against his will.
Ah,
And you see it here. And then in the next step, when he returned to the king, he said that send beautiful women to the Israelites instead. And the Israelites fell into this trap. Do you follow?
yes.
So this happened. And in this first step, if we go back to the first step, this is famous. He went on a donkey.
Ah.
And the donkey was able to see the angel, but Balaam was not able to see him. And the donkey began to speak to the prophet. There's an angel there. I cannot continue forwards. So the donkey, so to say, and the angel urged him to bless the Israelites instead. So this is important, not only for Bible in general, but also in art history. Because I know that great Rembrandt made this picture as well. Rembrandt, Balaam, let me take it. And the donkey, and let me see. Balaam the ass. I have seen this picture in Paris. You see, Rembrandt, the great Rembrandt. Balaam is hitting the donkey with his, what do you call it, staff? Stick, thank you. Because he doesn't see the angel. And the donkey refuses to go forwards. And then the donkey begins to speak to him. If you remember, Wittgenstein said that even if the lion would be able to speak to us, we would not understand him. But here actually you have a donkey that gets a human voice and addresses Balaam. In this case, this is a miracle, of course. Balaam is able to understand what the donkey is saying to him, that is an angel in front of him.
And in the end, it's Balaam who is the ass, not the ass.
Yes, indeed. Good, excellent. So he was speaking in double sense. He should have learned his lesson here. But then he insisted on attacking the Israelites by proposing to the king to send beautiful women there. So this was a long discussion about Balaam. So Balaam is an important figure because it occurs several times in the Bible. You see in 2 Peter, Jude, Revelation. And then in art history. So and Balak is the name of the king.
But it's also a very interesting point there because it's a progression, a development, which is very strong from this more primitive religious takes that do not have a long-term game, where it's more about surviving the day. There is no morality that's long-term either. And there comes this new take on the Judaic religion, where there is a massive point. You are progressing beyond belief, much longer and much further. There is an American author, we're going to make an extensive summary next time we go back to Locker and Sedmak, and I will find out his name. He's written several books about the newness of Christianity. And he calls this the hypothesis, but it needs more explanation. It's his neologism, I would say. It's very interesting. And it shows the difference in Christianity in contrast to the Roman Empire, the pagan religions around Israel, and so forth and so forth. But I think maybe we've gone over a bit past the time here. What do you say?
Yes, let's end there. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for listening. Thank you, Kalle Lundad, for your excellent exposure of Balak. And thank you very much for listening in. Have a very pleasant morning, day, afternoon, or night, wherever you are. Bye-bye for now.